Maka live on how many platforms?
TV, Facebook, radio. Presidential Youth Dialog yomakonza ndi amenewa Youth and Society ndi Dickson Chivwati Gondo kuno tukulingini mene magaya akhala akambirana makamakaso ndi atsogolera amenewa amene akhale akupikisana nawo pa chisankho chikudzachi ngini ili kunoko ndi vibe imene ikukhudza inuyo achinyamata komanso ineyo kuti kodi tikhale tikuyenda bwanji pa 16 September komanso kodi ndi vibe yake imene atikonzera amenewa amene akutsogolera zipani zosiyanasiyana ndelero zokambirana zimenezi akuluakulu ayasakonza pamene tikamba kuti akukumana achinyamata amenewa ndi mtsogoleri wa chipani cha United Democratic Front UDF amenewa ndi Atupele Muluzi ndi amene nditu akhale akukumana ndi achinyamata amenewa kuunikira napo zina mwa mfundo zimene zimakhudza achinyamata komanso tikamba nkhani yokhudza kodi nkhani za democracy zimayenda bwanji pakati pa achinyamata komanso ndi tsogolo lotani limene achinyamata amafuna kumbali yawo ngati nzika za dziko lino ndi tikati kumveka kwakuluakulu yas komanso ndilinso ndi mkulu amene amayang'anira ngini yonse yokhudza achinyamata amene ndi Rex Yapota amene ndi mkulu wa National Youth Council of Malawi amene tikhalenso tikucheza nawo makamaka zokhudza kufunikira kwa ndondomeko imene kodi ndiyofunikira motani akandikoyamba ndithu kuti tione zoterezi achapota tikulandire pano pa Zodiac
tathokoza kwambiri
chabwino mwina nkofunikira motani kuti achinyamata adzikhala ndi mwayi ngati wotere
izizi ndizofunika kwambiri chifukwa mnyamata msungwana amene sanawo mbali yazokambirana zokhudzana zisankho ndekuti ameneyo sakwanira kuti akhale ndi nzika yeniyeni nzika zenizeni zimafunika kuti zizimanda atsogoleri ziwafunse mafunso akambirane chifukwa dziko lino achuluka ndi achinyamata
chabwino mukuona kuti zitha kukhala ndi zotsatira zotani pamene tikamba kuti chisankho chili pa 16 September tikamba kuti ambiri somwe amene anakwanitsa kulembetsa ndi achinyamata eni yake
izi ndizofunika kwambiri chifukwa achinyamata amenewa ndi amene tikhonera kuti is a deciding vote imene ikakhale ndi mphamvu kwambiri ndi achinyamata kote kuti achinyamata kuti amve kwa atsogoleri amene abwerapo oyera kuti ine ndifuna president nkhani imene ndiyofunika kwambiri chifukwa achinyamata afuna adziwe kuti kodi ma president amenewa atati alowa mboma mmenemo akapangira chani akapanga zinthu zoti achinyamata ziwathandize kotero kuti nkofunika kuti onse amene akufuna mpando umene wa president akumane ndi achinyamata akambirane zoona atulane zinkhawa kuti kodi pa 17 zamachitika tidzakumbutsana kuti mudati tumudati
chabwino timakamba nkhani yokhudza democracy m'manja mwa achinyamata tambasula nkhani imeneyi
imene ndiyofunika kwambiri. Actually National Youth Policy imanena kuna kuti achinyamata dziko la Malawi ayenera kukhala mbali ya zokambirana komanso zosankha atsogoleri. Cholinga chake nchona kuti atsogoleriwo azichita zinthu zowakomera achinyamata. Ndezimene zingachitike mpaka na achinyamatawo atapatsidwa mpata woyankhula pa nkhani zimenezi. Komanso chimene akufuna achinyamata nchona kuti atsogoleri azimva zimene wo akudutsamo. Asangopanga gesi kuti achinyamata mwakuti iyayi amve kwa achinyamata apatse program achinyamata imene iwowo achinyamata ikuzokwathandiza kupita patsogolo pa dziko lino.
Pamene tikufotokoza kuti leloso ndi tsiku la mtengo wapatali kwambiri, inyo ngati bungwe limene limayang'anira achinyamata, mukuona kuti nkofunikira motani kuti atsogoleri adzikumana ndi achinyamata ngati mene achitira akuluakulu bungwe la EAS amene komanso nthambi zina pa nkhani zosiyanasiyana zokhudza moyo wawo?
Ife tikumva kukoma kwambiri chifukwa posa nena mofuna kuti tisanamizanepo pano EAS ayiponyera game patali. Chifukwa achinyamata amafunika kuti pa china chilichonse chochitika pa dziko akhalepo. Kotero kuti kumakhala ndi ma presidential hopefuls kucheza na achinyamata momasuka ngati mezi chitikire masanano ndi nkhani ya mtengo wapatali. Kotero kuti tipemphe onse amene akuyimira pa mpando umenewu amene apezeke pa ma dialogues ngati amenewa achione cha mtengo wapatali. Chifukwa zikatere zimathandiza kwambiri achinyamata dziko lino.
Nkhani ina ndiyokhudza kodi zikatha zotere ena amanena kuti phindu lake silioneka kwenikweni. Mukuona kuti zipindula ndithu pamene tikamba kuti zokambirana zimene zikuyamba ndi amene wa Muluzi IUD?
Izi zipindula kwenikweni chifukwa nkhani yayikulu chimene EAS akufuna nchona kuti president wina aliyense amene asankhidwe pa 16 September apange zinthu zonkomera mnyamata. Ndi zinthu zimene zozo awauze achinyamata kuti izi ndimene ine ndikuonera ndidzapangira achinyamata. Cholinga nchakuti usakhale msonkhano wongoyamba chabe koma chiyambi chakukumana ndi atsogoleri nthawi zonse. Chifukwa pakapita miyezi 3 ka miyezi 6 achinyamata omwe wanso adzafunika kuti akamfunse mtsogoleri uja mudatiuza tsiku lija kuti mudzatere nanga pano zili pati nanga supita kuti. Chifukwa tikatero ndiye kuti achinyamata akhale mbali pazochitika za democracy komanso pa nkhani ya governance. Kunena kuti achinyamata akuona kuti kodi dziko lawo lipita kuti. Chifukwa dziko la Malawi kuti zinthu zitheke pafunika pakhala achinyamata ona patali. Achinyamata amene akutulutsa mawu awo, achinyamata amene akutengapo mbali ndi kuwafunsa atsogoleri kuti kodi zakuti zikhala bwanji zikuyenda bwanji. For achinyamatawo ndi amene alitenga dziko lino kupita nalo patsogolo.
We are here at the Crossroads Hotel where the Youth and Society in conjunction with Zodiac have organized this presidential youth dialogue. With me now is the CEO for the National Youth Council of Malawi. We are talking of the presidential youth dialogue. How significant is it in as far as the country's democracy as well as leadership is concerned?
This is a very significant moment. Actually, I want to applaud Youth and Society for organizing these presidential hopefuls. When we talk about youth participation and meaningful youth participation, it's when young people don't only talk among themselves, they talk with duty bearers, they talk with those who want to be in office. Therefore, what is happening today, I would say, is a culmination of what the National Youth Policy say. Actually, the objective number 2 of the National Youth Policy says we need to promote active participation of young people in governance matters. Hence, today, starting this program, this is a game changer in terms of the way young people ought to be involved in the governance process of this nation.
We are talking of the issue to do with democracy in the hands of the youth. May you please expound on this one?
What we are seeing here today is that young people ought not to be on the sidelines of a democratic space, because as we all know, young people are the majority in this nation, even including being a deciding vote in the 2025 tripartite election. Hence, they need to have a voice. They also need to know, actually they demand to know what their leaders have in store for them. Because if they do that, it means they will vote with knowledge, they will have understanding of what this leader represents, and when they go into the ballot box, they will know what to do right, because they have engaged with these potential presidential hopefuls in this nation.
How best can we sustain such initiatives?
This ought to be sustained because, as I've said, it's in the national youth policy, and we want to have all stakeholders, including government, to inject resources into such kind of dialogues, because nations that have developed, they have allowed their young people to be part and parcel of a discourse of a journey of development, and this needs to be encouraged, and it's a game changer in the way young people ought to participate in the democratic space in this nation.
We thank you for your time and wish you well.
Thank you so much.
That's the CEO for the National Youth Council of Malawi, Mr. Rex Chabora, explaining more about what is happening today here at the Crossroads Hotel, where the Youth and Society and Zodiac Broadcasting Station have organized this youth presidential dialogue. Ndetu kupitirabe kupatsirana zomwe zochitika kuno ku Crossroads Hotel parali pano ndili ndi Mwandida Theo kuchokera kubungwe la YAS. Takulandirani pano pa Zodiac. Mwina munaganiza motani kuti pakhale dongosolo limeneli inu ngati amene mwakonza zonse?
Tiyambe kunena kuti ifeyo ngati Youth and Society tikulandira chithandizo kuchoka ku UNDP, ndipo malingaliro athu poyamba penipeni tinkaganiza kuti tikhale ndi ma presidential youth debates. Ndeti tamva kuti MISA ikupanga organize ma debates, tinaona kuti tisapange duplicate ma efforts athu, tiasiye MISA Malawi apange ma debates amenewo. Komabe timafunisisa kuti tipange create platform yonena kuti omwe ali ndi chikhumbo choyimira pa ma position au president ku Malawi kuno akhale ndi kuthekera koyankhulana ndi achinyamata, komanso achinyamata amenewa akhale ndi kuthekera koyankhulana ndi azitsogoleri azipani zosiyana-siyana. Ndi chifukwa chake tinanena kuti tisapange ma debate koma tipange ma dialogue pomwe tionesese kuti achinyamata tayike mu malo amodzi ndi presidential candidate kuti angatokha ndi nthawi yokwanira kuti amvesese kuti mu manifesto ya zipani mene muli zotani, komanso achinyamata afuse mafunso omwe ali nawo kwa presidential candidate ameneyo. Nde tapanga organize ma dialogues amenewa ndi cholinga chonena kuti tipereke mpata kwa achinyamata kuti afuse mafunso, komanso ayike ndemanga zokhuzana ndi chipani cha UDF, komanso a president a UDF atiuze kuti ndi malingaliro otani omwe akhonza mu manifesto mwawo okhuzana ndi achinyamata.
Pamene tukamba zokhudza ndondomeko imeneyi Theo, nkhani makhalapo kuyamba zinthu komano mwina kupitiriza, komanso ndondomeko zimene muyike kuti mwina zimene zikhale zopindula ndi zotani, tukamba kuti chisankho kwangotsala masiku ochepa.
Ifeyo tinenese pano kunena kuti cholinga chathu nchonena kuti usangokhala mkumano onena kuti achinyamata ndi ma presidential candidate amenewa akuyankhula zitherepompo. Kuti ukhale mkumano onena kuti pamapeto pake titha kukhala pasi amene atenge upresident pa 16 September pano titha kukhala naye pasi ndikunena kuti izi ndi zomwe munalonjeza achinyamata tili pati. Nde ifeyo sustainability yake ndionena kuti sitikungosira pa mkumanoyi, tikachoka pamenepa tiyamba upanga track chilichonse chomwe chiyankhulidwe menemo, ndipo ma president achitenge kuti ndi simkumano onena kuti wandale kapena kuti lale. Iyi ndi mkumano onena kuti akulonjeza zinthu kwa achinyamata ndipo azakwanirise. Ndipo ifeyo ngati Youth and Society tizaonesesa kuti tili ndi ndondomeko zoti zomwe ayankhula umulero tizazipange track kuti zizatheke.
Pamene tukamba zokhudza zokambirana zimenezi Theo, nkhani inanso imene makhala yovuta kwambiri pa nthawi ngati imeneyi imakhala kugwiritsa ntchito achinyamata ngati zida zimene zimatsogolera kwambiri amene amagwiritsa ntchito kwambiri pa nkhani yokhudza ziwawa pandale. Mukuona kuti ndondomeko imene mwayika ithandizira bwanji kuthana ndi mavuto ngati amenewo?
Tisimikize kunena kuti achinyamata afe timagwiritsidwa ndi ntchito kuyambisa ziwawa, ndipo achinyamata afe timafunidwa kwambiri nthawi ngati ino ya kampeni yomwe azipani amaona kuti ndi nthawi yonena kuti ifeyo tili ndi kuthekera kuti tingathe kukapangira kampeni kapena kukapanga entertainment kumene ativalike makaka azipani, komanso tikayambise ziwawa. Tivomereze kuti ku Malawi kuno kuli democracy, kuli zipani zosiyana-siyana. Tikukamba pano tunena kuti amene ayimire upresident umenewo pali anthu 17 ndi anthu ochuluka kwambiri. Komanso tivomereze kuti anthu ma ideologies kapena kuti fundo zathu timasiyana. Inu achipani china mutokha ndi fundo ina, achipani china tokha ndi fundo ina, koma tisagwiritse ntchito achinyamata amenewa kuti akayambe ziwawa kuti fikoti sakugwirizana ndi fundo za chipani china. Tinene pano appeal yathu kupita kwambiri kwa ma political parties omwe amatigwirisa ntchito ife achinyamata kuti tizipanga ma violence. Ife ngati achinyamata tili committed kunena kuti panopo sitikungofuna tigwirisidwe ntchito zopanga ziwawa ayi. Panopo mutati muonesese chiwerengero cha achinyamata amene akufuna kuyimira nawo pa maudindo osiyanasiyana, UMP, ukhansala, chikuchulukirabe kuonesa kuti achinyamata amenewa ali ndi kuthekera kuti atha kukhala maudindo osiyanasiyana. Ndeti nene pano ngati a Youth and Society tikumema achinyamata kuti asagwirisidwe ntchito poyambisa ziwawa, azindikire mphamvu yomwe ali nayo ku Malawi kuno, ali ndi mphamvu yoti itha kusintha zinthu, ali ndi mphamvu yoti atha kuyimira maudindo osiyanasiyana ndi kusankhidwa, komanso ali ndi mphamvu yonena kuti atha kupanga pitch zokhuzana ndi mtendere.
We are giving you the youth presidential dialogue here at the Crossroads Hotel in Lilongwe, where the Youth and Society and Zodiac Broadcasting Station have organized this event. This is also part and parcel of ensuring that the youth are accommodated in various policies by political leaders. So today, the first candidate is Atupele Muluzi of the UDF. I have Mandida Teo from the Youth and Society. Maybe what made you to have a chance, think about it, and maybe come up with this particular idea?
Yeah, so just the background is that Youth and Society is being supported by UNDP, and the whole idea that we had, initial idea, was that we should have presidential youth debates, but after learning that MISA is already doing that, we thought of not duplicating the efforts, but rather complementing those efforts. So today we are talking about the presidential youth dialogues, where we want to bring young people in one room and the presidential candidate to talk on the policy agenda of that particular political party. Today we are starting with Honorable Atupele Muluzi. The whole essence is that we are creating a platform where young people can ask difficult questions, where young people can have a platform to engage directly with the Honorable Atupele Muluzi. But again, to create a platform for that presidential candidate to unpack the manifesto. What is it that they have packed for young people ahead of these elections? So basically we are creating a platform where young people should have free time to talk to a specific presidential candidate.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
That's Mandida Teo from the Youth and Society. Pakadali pano zikuoneka kuti aizonse nkati moza longosoka ndipo tikhale ndithu tikupita kuti tikuone kuti zikuyenda motani pamene tikamba kuti pakadali pano akuluakulu a Youth and Society, Zodiac Broadcasting Station, komanso mabungwe osiyanasiyana, for example Nation Youth Council, ali nkati mmene muchitikira amakama muchitikira zochitika zimenezi pamene kukhale ndithu kukumana ndi amene wa Atupele Muluzi chipani chimene cha United Democratic Front. Awatu ndi oyamba kukumana nawo pa ndondomeko imene akuluakulu amene wa ayasa akonza. Timayang'anapo pa mndandanda umene akonza pali ndithu adalitso kabambe achipani cha UTM, pali Lazarus Chakwera achipani cha MCP, taonaponso Peter Muthalika achipani chimene cha DPP, taonaponso Joyce Panda a People's Party. Ena mwayo amene ndithu pali chikonzero kuti akumane ndi achinyamata osiyanasiyana pamene tikamba kuti chisankho chilipo pa 16 September 2025, kusankha mtsogoleri wa dziko, kusankha aphungu a nyumba ya malamulo, komanso kusankha makhansala. Tikudziwa achinyamata.
Exactly.
Dzina lija ndani man?
Dzina langa ndi Vuse Muzika Mbale.
Mukuona bwanji ngini alelo?
Ngini alelo setup ndi sharp kwambiri. I think
Saudi kali sharp kwambiri ndi jana.
Everything is in place. Chinaji yonse is well put, and I think ngini yoti anakonzekera palibe china yonse chimene chili chonse mpana. Everything is well put. Yeah.
Ngini imene kuona kuti ifo kuti Muluzi aitoke kwambiri ndi ngini yanji?
Okay. Kwa ineyo ndimafuna kuti akana kamba kwambiri za mmene tikugwiritsidwa ntchito achinyamata. Chifukwa iwo ngati munthu oti ndi wachinyamata kapena nakhala kwa chinyamata amadziwa mmene achinyamata timagwiritsidwa ntchito nthawi ya zisankho ngati noyi. Pali zinthu zingapo zimene achinyamata akupangidwa involve. Zinthu zina zoti sizabwino kwinaso mwina tikhoza ngati tikuphedwa ufulu wathu. So iwo ngati youth ndi munthu oti anakhalako mnyamata ndingofuna kuti angopanga kwa address kuti ndi chifukwa chani zinthu zimene zikuchitika, ndi chifukwa chani azisogolera azipani amatipanga include ifeyo mu zinthu zina zake sizikuyenera tipangidwe include makamaka nthawi ngati ino ya zisankho.
Okay, so ndathokoza tichoka popo mamapeto waita ndithu pakadali pano tibwerere mkati mwene tsopano kuti zonse zatheka. Cynthia Zulu amene akhala kuyendetsa mwambo umuchitika mkati pamene kamba kuti Youth and Society komanso Zodiac akonza ndithu zokambirana zimene za chinyamata zomwe zikuchitika pamene kwatsala masiku ochepa kuti dziko lino lipite ku chisankho chapatatu.
You may take your seats. The President of UDF and Presidential Candidate in the 2025 elections, Honorable Atupele Muluzi, the Executive Director of Youth and Society, Mr. Charles Kajoloweka, the YDC Coordinator, Ms. Mwandida Teu, and the entire YDC Youth Leadership, the NICOM Executive Director, Mr. Rex Chapota, the UDF General Secretary, Honorable Lemani, and all UDF officials, development partners, our youth, ladies and gentlemen, Ndikulandileni nonse kunoku Presidential Youth Dialogue 2025 here at Crossroads Hotel, organized by Youth and Society, together with Youth Decide campaign in partnership with Zodiac and with the support from UNDP. Inelanga Dzina ndi Cynthia Zulu, and I have the honor of moderating today's event. You see, we are gathered here for a very important reason: to create a space where the voices of young people are not only heard, but also placed at the center of national decision-making. Today's dialogue with the President of UDF and Presidential Candidate in the 2025 elections, Honorable Atupele Muluzi, is about bridging the gap between leadership and the youth, ensuring that our aspirations, concerns, and solutions shape the future of Malawi. As we move towards the next chapter of our country's development, this platform allows us to engage in meaningful conversations, present our priorities through the 2025 to 2030 Youth Manifesto, and hold our leaders accountable to building a Malawi where young people are empowered to thrive. This is not just an event, it is a movement of ideas, action, and commitment to the future we all want to see. Achinyamata oye! Simukumveka rundi eneji. Achinyamata oye! Tililimozi lelo eti? We all know why we are gathered here today. For those of you that could not be with us today, we are streaming live on Zodiac as well as Youth and Society pages. Tonse amene tukutaka kutuona kuti tuonera online nditu. Chonde kalani nafe komanso, please fusani mafuso anu amene muli nawo, Honorable Atupele Muluzi amene tinao tsiku la lero pamene tukupanga dialogue yatu. Before we get into the dialogue, please allow me to welcome the YDC coordinator, Ms. Mwandida Teu, amene atigaileko ma opening remarks. Taombele manja pamene akubwera kusogolo kuno.
Honorable Atupele Muluzi, the President of United Democratic Front, UDF, and the Presidential Candidate in the 2025 elections, Mr. Charles Kajoloweka, the Executive Director for Youth and Society, Mr. Rex Chapota, the National Youth Council of Malawi Executive Director, Honorable Rayman, UDF Secretary General, and all UDF officials present here, colleagues from the civil society, members of diplomatic community, representatives of the media, and above all, the young people that are in this room. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. It is with great pride and humility and deep sense of responsibility that I stand before you today to welcome you to the Presidential Youth Dialogue, the first in a historic series of conversations between young people and also those aspiring to lead our country. We meet at a critical juncture in Malawi's democratic journey. In a few short weeks, our country will hold its 7th multi-party elections, a moment that gives us the opportunity to renew our democracy, reshape our governance, but again reimagine our collective future. But let us be very clear here. This election is not just any other election. It is a youth election. With over 70% of our population under the age of 35, the decisions made in the next administration will affect this demographic more than any other. The young people of Malawi are not simply an interest group. They are the majority, the engine, but again the promise of this nation. Yet, as we all know, too often our young people have been marginalized. They are mobilized during elections as voters, campaigners, and entertainers. But once the ballots are counted, they are pushed back to the margins of power. Their voices fade into the background until the next campaign season. This dialogue is about changing this pattern. It is about moving beyond politics as usual. The Presidential Youth Dialogue series, organized by Youth and Society, yes, in partnership with Youth Decide campaign and with broadcast support of Zodiac Broadcasting Station, has one central goal: to create a platform where young people directly engage those aspire to lead Malawi on policy, on accountability, but again on the future of the country. This is not a rally. This is not a photo opportunity. This is a space for serious policy-driven, but again where words will be measured against the hopes and struggles of millions of young Malawians. The issues we raise are not abstract. They are everyday realities that young people across Malawi face. The agency of quality education that equips graduates with relevant practical skills, the desperate need for jobs and economic opportunities in a country where youth unemployment remains one of the highest in the region. The challenges of entrepreneurship, where young innovators are often left without capital, but again mentorship to grow their ideas. The pressing concerns of health and well-being, including sexual and reproductive health rights. The demand for digital inclusion and innovation, because Malawi's youth cannot compete in the 21st century economy if they are digitally locked out. And critically, the fight against corruption and bad governance, because corruption steals directly from us young people. It steals the opportunities, their education, their health care, also their future. This dialogue is therefore a moment of truth. It is a chance for young Malawians to look those seeking offers in the eye and ask, what will you do for us? How will you do it? And when are you going to do it? This afternoon, we have the honor of engaging Honorable Atupele Muluzi, the president of UDF, a leader who is no stranger to Malawian politics and to the aspirations of young people. Honorable Muluzi, in addition to hearing your vision today, the youth of this country have a very specific request. We humbly ask you to publicly endorse the National Youth Manifesto of 2025 to 2030. Allow me to briefly explain what is the National Youth Manifesto. The National Youth Manifesto that will run from 2025 to 2030 is a strategic blueprint co-created by thousands of young people across all regions, from cities to villages, refugee camps to universities, marketplaces to digital platforms. It reflects their lived realities, their hopes, and their vision for the Malawi they want to inherit. It is structured around 12 core pillars, which captures the most pressing priorities of the Malawi's youth. And these core themes, number 1 is quality and accessible and relevant education, the youth employment and vocational training, land acquisition and utilization, youth leadership in politics and civic life, youth in conflict with the law, but also access to justice, youth and anti-corruption drive, ICT and infrastructure development, protection from violence and sexual abuse, access to health services, environment and climate change, culture and arts. The last one is youth with disabilities and other vulnerable groups. This manifesto is both a mirror reflecting the struggles of Malawi's young people and a map offering concrete policy directions for a youth-centered future. And so, Honorable Muluzi, on behalf of young people of Malawi, I humbly request you to endorse this National Youth Manifesto. Your endorsement will not just be symbolic. It will be strategic commitment to youth-centered governance. It will also send a very powerful message that the aspiration of young people matters, that their priorities will be placed at the heart of your leadership, and that your campaign is anchored in real solutions for the generation that makes up the majority of this country. We expect today's dialogue to be frank, substantive, but also accountable. Honorable Muluzi, we welcome you warmly, but also remind you to respect, to free, honor this audience. Every word spoken here will be documented. We want to have this same time to ask you whatever you've said today. And every other presidential candidate will be also reached out for their commitments when the next administration begins. Allow me to acknowledge the invariable support of our partners who have made this dialogue possible. The United Nations Development Program, UNDP, Malawi, for standing with us to strengthen democracy and youth participation. Zodiac Broadcasting Station, for ensuring that this conversation reach millions of Malawians in their homes and communities. Our colleagues in the Youth Decide campaign, who continue to mobilize and amplify youth voices across the country. And most importantly, every young Malawian youth who is here in the room and joining us online. You are the reason this initiative exists. This is your platform, your voice, and your future. Let me conclude by saying the struggle for a better Malawi is not just age, gender, or party color. It is about collective determination to build a country where young Malawians are just not voters, but partners in leadership. Not just a demographic statistic, but a national force for transformation. As young people, we must seize this opportunity. We must ask hard questions, demand clear answers, and refuse to settle for promises. Because the future we want, the Malawi we deserve, will not be given to us. We must claim it. And this is the time to claim it. On behalf of Youth and Society, the Youth Decide campaign, Zodiac Broadcasting Station, I welcome you all to this important engagement. Let us use this platform boldly, wisely, but again decisively. Thank you for your time.
Let's give another round of applause, Ms. Mwandida Teu, the YDC coordinator, giving us a deep dive on why we are gathered here today. Honorable Muluzi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
How are you doing?
Very well. And what about yourself?
I'm great, thank you.
Excellent.
Pachinyamata batu timati bobo.
Bo.
Zikuteka.
Zikuteka.
Okay.
Kamena wezi.
Wezi. All right. As we're about to start this dialogue here today, the Presidential Youth Dialogue, it is going to be open to the audience. So, ndukulubira kuti achinyamata mabwera ndi mafunso eti pali zinthu zambiri zomwe tikufuna tidziwe. Mwandida has already highlighted what will you do? What is your vision? What will you do? How will you do it? And when will you do it? Those are some of the questions that we would like you to answer for us, the youth. Nde monga mukuziwira pali ena amene ati joina online on Zodiac, but as well as the Youth and Society pages. Chonde, feel free kuti mutumize mafunso anu. Tikhala tikufunsanso mafunso anu amene mukuonera online. Nde kwa nonse amene muli muchipinda muno, the rules of engagement are: you're only allowed to clap. No cheering, no wooing, because that will take us away from the conversation we're having. So we will ask you if you would like to clap. Feel free to clap, but that is all you're allowed to do. Zamvegeti? Mukundiva bwino bwino? Okay, all right. We're going to get right into our dialogue right now. Also, please feel free to ask your question in your desired language. Is more than welcome, especially those that are online as well. We will be answering your question no matter what language it comes in. All right, let's get into it. All right, so Honorable Muluzi, your Agenda for Change manifesto positions you as a modernizer focused on digital transformation, intergenerational partnership, and economic reform. Ajinyamata kunogo afuna adziwe ma priorities clearly. Why are you running for presidency in this election? And what is new and unique that you bring in this election for the people of Malawi, and of course, the youth in particular?
Good afternoon, young people, future leaders, and change makers. Moni nonse. Chisankho chachaka chino chikuchitika panthawi imene tikudziwa kuti Malawi ikumana ndi mavuto osiyanasiyana. We're in crisis of the economy, corruption, leadership, and Malawi must change. We are also at a very pivotal moment in the history of the world. We have a once-in-a-generation opportunity to transform a country like Malawi. So, right now, the world is looking for critical minerals. Niobium, rutile, graphite, rare earth minerals. This is a new oil. So it's a generational cycle, and once in a generational opportunity to seize this opportunity for great, enormous transformation of our economy. But what the world is looking for is confidence, and they're looking for accountability. So the reason why I'm standing for president is because I know the country is in crisis, and it requires a leadership that is going to bring innovation. What we're going to do is we have a 100-day plan which we are calling Business First. The 100-day plan, the purpose of the 100-day plan is to fix the economy. Before you can grow the economy, you need to stabilize the economy. One area which is of grave concern is the cost of living crisis. Malawi akudandaula kuti katundu akukwera ntengo tsiku ndi tsiku. So we have to fix the cost of living crisis. How do we do that? The reason for the cost of living crisis is the exchange rate. Malawi requires $3.2 billion a year to run its economy. We run our economy on fuel and imports. So you need $3.2 billion a year to run the Malawi economy. We're only generating $1 billion from current exports. So we have a deficit of $2.2 billion. Mbuyomu, the $2.2 billion, imajokera from these sectors. One, donors. Donors were giving us approximately $1 billion a year of development assistance. The remainder, approximately, I think it was around 700 million, was through external and domestic borrowing. And that is why the country has found itself going further into debt. In fact, we are in a situation where the debt to GDP ratio is almost hitting 88%, 89% this year, which would lead a country like Malawi to almost in a situation of debt distress. So let's come back to the problem. We need $3.2 billion dollars a year to run and manage this economy. We're only generating $1 billion. The other was financed by donors, This year, the donors have now, we've lost 50% of development assistance. USAID has pulled out, and 50% of donor support has been lost. We're also not on an IMF program. As a result of that, other lenders will not give us money. So the IMF program is a signal to bilateral partners to be able to loan for Malawi. So the borrowing that I was talking about in order to stabilize the economy. So we are in deep, deep crisis. The only problem is that we're not seeing the crisis now. We'll probably feel it in the next few months to come. Already, you know, in the last 5 years, we've moved in the poverty profile from 50% to around 80% this year. And the majority of the people that have fallen into poverty are young people. Inflation is over 30%, and it's probably going to get worse. So how do we fix it? The exchange rate. We're operating two parallel exchange rates. One, on the official exchange rate, operating 1,700 kwacha to the dollar in the banks, and 4,400 to the dollar in the black market. This disparity is causing a massive distortion because businesses are operating at the black market rate. So they're not operating at the official rate because they can't access the dollars. And Malawians are trading at 4,400. So already we have unofficially devalued our currency to 4,400 because you can only find dollars on the black market. And that is a true exchange rate. The 1,700 in the banks is only accessible to the elite. Let's be honest, only the elite are able to access the dollars in the banks. Just last week, National Bank announced that they have literally run out of dollars. You cannot credit even your card if you're traveling. But you're finding that the elite are able to access dollars at 1,700 and then dump it on the black market in country at 4,400. So in the last few years of this crisis, we have created multi-billionaires simply by playing the exchange rate game. And this is what is causing the cost of living crisis. And it is hurting young people and is causing poverty in this country. So what we must do is we must liberalize exchange rate from day one and abolish peg. Liberalizing the exchange rate, you know, some may think that we're talking about devaluation. There's a difference between a devaluation and liberalizing exchange rate, because the devaluation has actually already happened. As I've explained, we're already buying at 4,400, but it is having massive effects on the economy. It is also causing job losses. A good example is Nigeria State, where it employs about 10,000 people. It was officially buying dollars at 1,700, but there's no dollars. But unofficially, the cost of business is around 4,400. 10,000 jobs, as a result, have had to be lost just in the tea sector alone. So liberalizing exchange rate will restore confidence, will eliminate the parallel market, but also at the same time, what do we do? Because we need the dollars to come in. So in order to liberalize the economy so that it doesn't hurt Malawians, because what may happen after you liberalize is that you probably sit the kwacha around 3,000. That's my prediction. It will probably come down from the black market rate of 4,400 to sit around 3,000, thereabouts. So the other is to attract foreign capital. Because if you want to have dollars available, you've got to attract foreign capital. Right now, because of withdrawal of support from international lenders, the focus must be now on investments and trade. The era of aid is over. And the only way investors will bring money into this economy is if they have confidence, if they have the stability, especially on the currency, and also a leadership that is decisive on fighting corruption, but also a leadership that is accountable to the people. So, sorry, it's a very long-winded answer, but I thought the excitement from the private sector is coming in because of the critical minerals. They want to invest in exploration because this is where the money is coming in. And also where what we are bringing in as something very different is that as we are doing the which we'll talk about later, what are the issues that we're proposing in the Business First strategy. Apart from exchange rate, we're also now moving into our manifesto, which will be launched on Sunday, which is Innovate Malawi, because we believe that once you stabilize, you can innovate and then you grow the economy. So that is our strategy. And our strategy involves establishing a sovereign wealth fund for Malawi. We need a sovereign wealth fund because of the critical minerals, because of the various interests that are there globally to invest in critical minerals. We have to establish a sovereign wealth fund and leverage that on digitization and technology.
All right, thank you. Now, like you mentioned that this is a strategy. If elected into presidency, what are the top 3 concrete actions you will deliver in your first 2 years in office that would directly improve the lives of Malawians?
First of all is stabilization of the economy. This number 1 is key, because this will lead to the opportunity for growth. The second is to protect the poor. So we need policies that can ensure that there's food security in the country. And therefore, we have a strategy around food security. And of course, now the third is driving corruption out, because the issue of corruption is what's hurting this economy. And what we are going to do is not just have a strategy around investigating, or we're going to go for restitution. We have stolen assets that are sitting outside this country that have to be brought back and invested in the economy. So restitution will be extremely important. Repatriation of funds will be another. The other is to ensure that we stop corruption in its track. And I'm one that is very strong on the fight against corruption. And corruption can only be fought when you have a leader that is not compromised, a leader that is accountable, a leader that can lead by example. And that is what we call fighting corruption. But it's not one individual alone. It's a collective effort. It requires the media to be able to call out where there's practices of corruption. It requires all of us to get involved in this issue of rent seeking, because rent seeking is what is damaging this economy. Corruption and rent seeking. And then of course, as we're doing that, is to go for growth. And the growth strategy is what I've just outlined. Leveraging on agriculture, leveraging on mining, the critical minerals, energy, tourism. I believe that these are the sectors that would drive change, that would drive the transformation. But this can only come from foreign direct investments. We need to create an environment where investors can have the confidence to bring their dollars into this economy. And where they're looking, what they're looking for is stability, confidence, predictability. So we need the dollars to come in. And I can tell you, already I've had a number of conversations globally. I've even signed an agreement with the UAE on this issue. So they're very ready to bring money here, to bring foreign capital here, which is going to generate the economic recovery, but also generate the jobs that are very much needed for the young people of this country.
Well, thank you very much. I hope kuti zikuveketi. And I hope that you guys are writing this down, because at the end of the day, we want to be able to hold Honorable Muluzi accountable, as we mentioned earlier, so that just in case he is entered into presidency, we then start holding him accountable for the things that he said he will do for the country of Malawi. All right, now we're going to move to the audience. For those of you that have questions, of course, I'll be taking some questions online. We're going to take 3 questions from the audience. Please feel free, kuti mufuse mafuzo in any language. Those of you that are online as well, feel free to ask the questions in any language. We'll take 3 from the audience and then 2 questions online. All right, please, sir, when you are asking your question, please introduce yourself.
Thank you so much, Honorable Atupele Muluzi. My name is Joy Chabwera. I have about 3 questions, but I'm going to be brief with them. The first one is the issue of sovereign wealth funds. Honorable Muluzi, you have been talking about this. What model of sovereign wealth funds are you looking at that fits the context of Malawi? And number 2, what source of revenue are you going to use to finance this sovereign wealth fund? Number two, you served in Dr. Joyce Banda's cabinet, and there was an initiative where the introduction of motorcycles, or called kabaza, in the country was introduced. The kabaza sector has grown, but it has also become an angel of death. We are losing people every day. The health budget is constrained because of this sector. What are you going to do in your first 100 days if elected into government to make sure that there's enforcement of the road traffic regulations and there's no political interference, so that in as much as you are creating jobs, there's also safety for our people? The last one, you tackled the issue of the national public debt, that it's about 89% of our GDP. And you also tackled the issue of optimizing the revenue from the mining sector to be able to stabilize the economy. The first question is, what are you going to do in your first 100 days in power? What strategy are you going to use to begin to service these public loans and make sure that we are not over-borrowing again and we are not borrowing internally as we are doing now? The issue of mining, we understand you are a miner yourself. How are you going to ensure us that you being in office, you are going to be transparent and declare conflict of interest in the way you are going to run the mining sector in this country? Thank you so much.
All right, there is 2 more hands. Would you like to respond now or take all 3 questions?
Perhaps I could respond.
Okay, so after one question, he responds, and then we move on to the other questions.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Joy, for your questions. I will try to be as brief as possible. The first one, the issue on the Sovereign Wealth Fund. We know that countries like the UAE and countries in the Gulf were able to find and identify mineral in the ground, and usually it was one commodity, which was oil. They never had anything else. So if they had oil, probably they never had gas. They either had gas or oil, but not both. And they did not have many other natural resources. So what did they do? When they identified this critical mineral, they were able to leverage it on the futures market. So instead of going and drilling the oil and selling every barrel of oil, they were able to go to the futures market, establish a sovereign wealth fund in order for those resources to be invested in infrastructure, which was now going to create a new economic model. So if you look at the UAE today, for instance, there's no natural resource in Dubai, for example. They have no oil. It's just simply financial services. In fact, 13% of Dubai's resources are owned by foreigners. Majority of the finance in Dubai is from foreign investments. So the key is to be attractive for foreign direct investments. And one model is a sovereign wealth fund, because what that does, it's a model, it's a sovereign wealth fund that is managed independently by your international top financial firms. And this is what brings in the confidence. And the sovereign wealth fund can generate revenues. And today, because we have this critical mineral resource, for example, rutile in Malawi, the graphite is the largest deposit in the world. We have found the new oil here in Malawi. We have the new oil. We are now moving towards electric, away from fossil fuels. And the global demand right now for rare earth minerals, critical minerals, or strategic minerals is extremely high. We're only managing globally to supply 10% of the global demand for critical minerals. So we are sitting on one of the largest reserves of the new oil in the world, right here in Malawi. But in order to move forward, you need to be able to be attractive for foreign capital. because it's really about how we can generate from this global buzz that is there for rare earth and critical minerals. So establishing a sovereign wealth fund, what it will do, it will bring confidence. It also allows us to leverage, as I've explained, but also gives the confidence that these resources will be used for future generation. So if you take a country like Chile, for example, they don't call it a sovereign wealth fund. It's probably, they've termed it future generation fund. The idea is to have a resource pool that allows investors to put resources for the future generation and the future investment of this economy and country. We can then use those resources to build infrastructure, but also to invest outbound for the people of Malawi, for the youth of Malawi, and the future generation. Now, in terms of investments, we're not just looking at infrastructure. The Sovereign Wealth Fund needs to invest in agriculture, because Malawi can export. We have potential for exporting macadamia, for example, which is in high demand, and other high value nuts. We also, avocado is also another high value crop that we can export. Cassava is another one. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry, but it requires foreign capital. And then, of course, looking at tourism, we need to invest in our tourism sector. Through the Sovereign Wealth Fund, resources can be generated to invest in tourism. But we've got to do also a number of reforms. One is to abolish VAT on tourism. We don't need that. That's scaring away the growth of tourism. That needs to be abolished. Second, we need to have an air access plan. It is too expensive to fly into Malawi because of landing fees. It's too high. So the way that we can be more attractive for foreign direct investment is to implement an air access plan, which involves removing landing fees so that more airlines can fly into the country. When more airlines come in, it means more investors are coming in. It means more tourism are coming in. And the other is to abolish visas for all countries. You know, Malawi is the 4th poorest country in the world. There's only 3 other countries poorer than us. There's no need for visas here. We should have visas on arrival for all countries. This makes us more attractive. And with an air access plan, we can start building and improving the tourism sector. And then, of course, I've spoken about the mining sector, which is the critical minerals. And then we need to also look at energy. And energy can be financed through the Sovereign Wealth Fund. Now, I've just mentioned earlier that I was in Abu Dhabi about 4 weeks ago in the Sheikh's office. And I was able to sign an agreement, which I've brought here with me, with JWD, which is His Royal Highness private entity, with a commitment to the people of Malawi to invest in the Sovereign Wealth Fund, to invest in resources that will be used for the people of Malawi, to generate jobs and opportunities for the people of Malawi. And I want to be as transparent as possible. The agreement is in front of you. It can be shared with the people of Malawi. I'm not a government official, so I cannot sign on behalf of the people of Malawi as a government official, but I was able to sign it as a private entity with the Sheikh's private office as a sign of global commitment that they are ready to invest in the Sovereign Wealth Fund and the Business First strategy, to bring in the dollars to stabilize our economy, but also to bring investor confidence. How has this happened? It has happened because of leadership that is accountable, transparent. I am someone that has, I hope, demonstrated to the people of Malawi that I am corrupt-free. I am someone that has stood, making sure that transparency and accountability are at the heart of politics. And politics is about ideas. It's about making sure that we're moving the country forward. And when I speak to global players, I bring a plan. I brought a plan, Business First plan. We have Innovate Malawi strategy. And this is what they're investing in. And this is the future of Malawi. So in terms of what you're asking, the model is how I've explained it. Chile is a very good example of how they've used a similar approach to create a fund for future generations, and other countries globally. Every serious country in the world with resources should have a sovereign wealth fund, and we must do it and we will do it. And the second part of the question, I think, was to do with the fact that I was able to be given the opportunity by President Joyce Banda to be part of her economic team when I was appointed economic planning minister, at a time when we had a very similar challenge of the economy where there was no foreign exchange, and we had a similar crisis where there was no fuel, and we had to put together a plan which was the economic recovery plan at the time. And she had also appointed me at that time as Malawi's governor to the World Bank in my capacity as Minister of Economic Planning. So I'm very grateful to her to have been able to be part of the economic planning team at the time that was able to stabilize the economy. But yes, we did see the growth of Kabaza, which was also, a sense of empowerment to young people to be able to generate businesses. But I'm very mindful of the risks involved, and we have to do something about it. I cannot promise that it can be done in 100 days, but it is something that we need to look at in terms of improving the safety of our Kabaza business people, and of course enforcement as well. But enforcement can only happen once you begin to stabilize the economy, because much of the corruption is taking place because life has just become so difficult. Even the police officers, public officers, are finding very difficult to manage on their wages because the economy is not working. And the only way to do it, to survive, is to bend the law. So we have to fix the economy, and that is a solution for making sure that we adhere to legal principles, but also at the same time making sure that we can get ourselves out of this mess. The cause of this crisis, the corruption, is because we don't have a private sector. So everyone is rushing to the little cake that is there, and that is government. So anyone now in government is saying, well, I don't know how long I'm going to be here. I can't survive in the private sector. Let me just do what I can, because the cake is small. So the only way to grow the cake is through private sector, is to grow the economy through private sector. It's business that employs. It's business that grows economies. It is not the government. The role of the government is simply to create that enabling environment for businesses to grow, for your businesses to flourish, for young people to be able to grow. The public debt right now is around 16 trillion. Half of it is domestic and the other one is external. We believe that the only way to address the debt crisis is to grow the economy, but you have to do certain things. You have to stabilize, as I've spoken about. But I must say, we need to get back on some form of IMF program. And unfortunately, we look at the moment, we don't have an IMF program, and look where we are today. The economy is not working. Things are bad. We don't have an IMF program. We have demonstrated to the world that we're not yet ready to be independent. Because if we were, we would be flying right now. Because we've always been accusing IMF and the World Bank for our problems. We don't have one, but where are we? Has our economy improved? No. So we need to get back on an IMF program in order to restore confidence and then negotiate for debt relief. As we did in 2003, when the UDF was in power, we were able to negotiate for HIPC debt relief, which was achieved by 2004. When President Bingu became president, he had now the flexibility to invest in infrastructure, because at that time we were able to clear the debt and negotiate for debt relief. Now we would like to do the same again. The new government, given the chance to govern in September, is to enter into negotiations for debt relief, because it's unsustainable. And the only way we'll be given debt relief is if there's a new government, a new president that gives confidence, that is accountable, that has a plan. We can do it, and it is achievable. That is the only way we can address this issue of the debt crisis. And then, of course, the issue of transparency in the mining sector is also key. Because if right now we are not a mining destination, but we have this massive resource that we want to take advantage of, we need to be attractive for global investors to come and explore minerals in Malawi. Exploration alone is a catalyst for economic transformation. Let them bring their dollars in. Let them bring their dollars. Let them invest in exploration. This is also going to help our availability of FX in the economy. And already there's a global buzz. So the way that we need to change our legislation from day one is to amend the mining laws to benchmark them on the best mining legislations in the world. And I'll give you an example. Which are the best mining legislations in the world? Chile is one good example. Australia is a good example. And I can talk about Chile later. Chile was able to be far more attractive foreign direct investment than Zambia, because Zambia's mining regime was very much archaic. But Chile's was progressive. And today's Chile's economy is probably 10, 15 times bigger than Zambia. When 20, 30 years ago, Chile with copper, Zambia with copper, were almost at the same level. So the key is how we can amend the laws to make them as attractive as possible for investors to bring their money into this economy. So in terms of transparency, that will be very key, because one of the key attributes of attracting foreign direct investment, especially in mining, is transparency. They need to know what resources we have, but also they want stability. So that's, I hope, answers the question, just to give more details on my side into my thinking. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I hope that does answer your questions. And also, because of time, we do have a lot of questions. We'll ask you to keep the responses as brief as possible. Komanso azatu amene akonera pa line akupempha kuti musitha kuti yankhula koso mujijewa zikomo. Alright, nde titengako ma questions ena awiri. Ndikukumbukira kuti wina anakweza kuyambirira komanso ndi ena anakweza uko. Ena anunso nthawi ina mutha kufunsa, but because of nthawi tikufuna kuti tipitirize discussion imene yomwe tili nayo tsiku lathu la lero. So funso lanu ndekuti yankhulanu izikhala as brief as possible. Ukoso titenga funso lina kenako titenga mafunso ena amene ali pa line, and then we continue with the dialogue. Thank you.
Zikomo kwambiri. Zina langa ndine Clement Makua, ndi funso limozi. As someone who has worked in the government, who have served the public service through a ministerial position, but also as a member of parliament, what systems irks you most, and how do you intend to address or to tune in those systems that irks you most to make sure that all the program that you're going to bring in this country, if given the position, the choice of leading this country on 16 September, what system structures are you going to bring as a new thing, other than what we've been talking about and what we've been lamenting about? Thank you.
Akuti ndiziyankhula mofulumira Clement ndikutokoza kwambiri. Ndikuyankheni chinthu chimodzi chimene ndimadandaula kwambiri muboma. When nothing happens, we have wonderful plans, but nothing happens. Chinthu chimene tisinthe tikatenga boma pa 16 September, munthu aliyense muboma assign a performance contract. Whether it's 2 years, there has to be a performance contract publicized. Zimene ayenera kukwaniritsa pachaka komanso izi zithandizo kuti pazikhala accountability. Ndi chinthu chimodzi tisinthe tikatenga boma pa 16.
All right, zikomo kwambiri.
Okay, my name is Leonard Johnston. I have two questions. Honorable, first question is Malawi faces significant fiscal constraints and high debt burden. What is your comprehensive plan to improve fiscal discipline, broaden the tax base, attract foreign direct investment in a traditional sector, and manage public debt sustainably to foster long-term economic growth? And the second question is how will your administrative addresses issues of governance, corruption, and institutional weakness, which are often cited as the major impediments to economic progress and investor confidence in Malawi? And what specific reforms will you implement to strengthen the rule of law, enhance transparency, and promote accountability across all levels of government? Thank you.
Zikomo kwambiri Ronald, nkhani ya mene mafusayo ikukhudza financial prudence, kuonetsetsa kuti ndalama zathu zigwiritsidwa ntchito moyenerera, makamaka tikudziwa kuti revenue collection pano ndi MRA ikuvuta kwambiri, makampani ambiri zinthu sizikuyenda bwino. Ine mfake ndikudandaula kwambiri kuti ambiri tungona kuti zapanga chakuti osadziwa kuti ndalama zopalibe. Businesses lero akulipira 40% ma salary increase, komanso chuma sichikuyenda bwino. So the fiscal space ndio chepa kwambiri. Nde tiyenera kupangaso ma austerity measures makamaka kuboma. One, osabweresa magari moto, boma isagulesa magari moto anyuwani muboma for at least 2 to 3 years. 2, kuyesetsa kuti maulendo ochepa tizendera economy class. 3, uchepesa magari moto a president, maendedweso a president ndunduna. So austerity ifunika kwambiri kuti tuonetsese kuti 1, chuma chathu ndalama zathu zigwiritsidwe ntchito moyenerera, komanso kuonetsesa kuti pereka chitsanzo as a signal makamaka internationally kuti tikufuna kukonza chuma chathu. Nkhani ya governance ndi ma institutional problems ndi rule of law ndiziphatikize kuti zonsezi ndi utsogoleri umene ufunitsitsa kuti ikwaniritse zinthu, uonesesa kuti ukutsogola ndi kutsata malamulo a dziko lino, chifukwa ndimakhulupirira kuti ngati utsogoleri siuli bwino ndi pamene zonse zimasokonekera. So leadership is very much at the heart of good governance.
All right, thank you everyone for your questions. Like I said, we will come back to the audience for more questions. But for now, I have 2 questions from young females that are watching online. And the first one is from Rafaela Nana Kamkota. Ndipo Aguti, Honorable, how will you ensure that corruption cases involving top officials are investigated and prosecuted without political interference? And what transparent systems will you introduce to ensure that every kwacha is used for its intended purpose?
Chiyambilira nkhani ya Katangale ndafotokoza kuti chuma chapanga collapse. We're in deep economic crisis. Pafunika kuti zinthu zingapo zichitike kuti chuma chibwerere, confidence ibwerere. Ndipo measures amenewo pafunika kuti anthu amangidwe ngatanaba. It's one of the conditionalities of international assistance. Nde ifeyo pakali pano tiyenera kuvomereza kuti zinthu sizili bwino, international assistance iyenera kubwera. And one of the zinthu zimene ziyenera kuchitika, anthu amene akudziwa kuti abandrama ayenera kuti afufuzidwe, kumangidwa, and the law should take its course. It's very important. Komase ndafotokoza kuti ndrama zimene zabedwaso kapena amene zinatuluka mdziko muno munjira osakhala usata malamulo, ndrama zimene zibwerere. My international partners akudziwa kuti ndrama zimene zizikuti. The signaling ifunika from day one. I don't think you would eat in the choice yai. Ziyenera kuchitika. Izi zithandiza kuti chikhulupiriro chibwerere. Menenda fotokoza kuti we don't have a choice. We have to act. Nkhani ya Katangale is very important in terms of the right signaling for international partners.
All right, moving on to the next question from online is Lydia Chimchere, and she's asked, what is your vision on improving the quality of education across the country and in poor communities, and how do you plan to achieve it?
Lydia, zikomo kwambiri chifukwa cha funso lako. One, economy. Sitingana melero kuti after 16 September kuti tipeza ndrama muboma. Economy yapanga collapse. Fake ndokufotokoza kuti number one strategy is ubwezeresa economy yathu kuti ibwerere. Ikabwerera, ikapanga stabilize, ndrama zikamba panga bwera mdziko muno, revenue collection yaboma ikapita patsogolo, ndikozana mayangana ma sectors za investments. Ndikoza kunena kuti tonse tikufuna ma investments ambili in education, kandi zao moyo, kandi ma sectors koma ndrama kulibe. Nde plan yathu imene tili nayo ndiwonetsa kuti tipange stabilize economy yathu. Ibwerere muchimache. Tipeze growth. Chuma chipite patsogolo kuti tikozana upanga invest ma key sectors. Nifake mafoto koza nkani ya sovereign wealth fund yatu inshure yache ndimeneyo.
All right, thank you very much to your questions for those of you that are watching online as well as those that are here in the auditorium. I'll just ask a few questions and then we'll bring it back to the audience. There's still time for you guys to ask your questions. You should put across your questions for Honorable Muluzi to tell us what it is that they will do once elected and if elected into presidency. All right, moving on. Honorable, UDF manifesto imabanga link vision yao to the Malawi 2063 aspiration of building an inclusively wealthy and self-reliant industrialized upper middle income country by 2063. Earlier, mnatuza koza business first plan, 100 days plan, which is a business first plan. Can you please unpack for us? I know somebody also asked a question. What will you do in your first 100 days if once elected into office? Can you please unpack for us what this 100-day plan, the business first plan, is?
So the business first plan is a 100-day plan to stabilize the economy, to restore confidence, and to be able to do four things. One is to fix exchange rate. I have explained about liberalizing exchange rate. Two is to protect our poor. Kuika ma program kutipa mene tukuzoti kulibe chakuja fika bakali pano kulibe ndrama amalawi alibe so chakuja tuonesese kuti andi chakuja. 3 nkani yakatangale corruption, be decisive, signaling menda fotokosa kuti international confidence ibwerere. 4 is kupanga leverage on critical minerals imene ipangise kuti chuma chatu chipite patsogolo growth. So these are the areas of focus within the first 100 days.
All right. Okay. And for a country that is heavily donor dependent, as we know, we are a very poor country. Malawi is very poor. And you signaled that we've lost a lot of donor aid, about 50% into the country recently. For a country that is heavily donor dependent, with your own manifesto that is claiming the traditional donor funding is expected to decline by 50% in 2025, which has already happened. This sounds incredible at face value, but what are the 5 practical steps you will take to shift the donor dependence?
Entire dalila donor aid yata, it's over. I think the era of development assistance is coming to a close. Entire there are investments in trade from within the region, palima opportunities within SADC, Comaso, AFFCTA within the African Free Continental Trade Area. Focus yatu ikala private sector investments, the trade. Ndikuziwa kuti ma development partners ato focus yao ilipamenepo. Monga tukulankula pano World Bank yatrusaso their strategy on kutandiza kania mining mziko muno za migodi. So the critical minerals will be a very key one. Komansa kutitandiza Patamanga hydroelectric dam, which is going to be, I think, about 300 megawatts, potentially even more. Is in my investments for private sector growth. The focus yatu ikala very much focused on business. Chifuka business dimene itandize kwambiri kuti chuma chatu chibwerere will miss on the business. nikamagamba business tukamba so ulimi for exports. Driving out to is domestic wealth generation. Koma kuti domestic wealth generation ichitike pafunika foreign capital ndrama zibwere mdziko muno kuti economy yathu ipite patsogolo. So that will be the focus in terms of the sectors menenda fotokoza agriculture, tourism, energy, mining. These are the drivers of this economy.
Okay, now we're going to move to a topic omwe achinyamata mbiri imatikuza kwa basi. Youth employment and empowerment. Malawi has over 50% of the youth, right? And over 20% unemployment in the country. Achinyamata mbiri amata kupeza kuti apita ku school nditu amaliza apanga graduate. And it's not everyone that can afford to go to higher education and graduate and look into getting a job after that. But we still stand at a high rate of unemployment here in Malawi. Your agenda for change pledges job creation through private sector growth. What specific time-bound commitments will you make to reduce youth unemployment and underemployment?
Joambilila ndili fotokoze kuti we're living in a time, very exciting time, chifukwa cha innovation, digitization. We are living in a time of blockchain, crypto, tokenization. Maiko ngati India, for example, the economies zao zinapita patsogolo because of business processing and outsourcing. So BPOs will be a very key driver, and already we have companies already lined up to assist in terms of in this area of digitizing the economy, but also digitizing jobs. My innovation hubs, these are the new jobs. We're fortunate as a country, many people don't know this, but Malawi has a fiber optic cable right across the country. So it's very easy to get technology and internet in the hands of young people. The new global jobs now around technology, innovation. This is where the money is. Crypto. You've seen how the US economy has actually, the Genius Act that President Trump signed is a global statement around the future of digitizing the economy. But more importantly, nchitoso ndu intaka ulimi. Agriculture, opportunities from agriculture here. Ndipamene supamakala nchito zambiri. Tikama kamba nchito ndi agriculture. Nde ulimi ndomene upite patsogolo kwambiri. Popanga bwelesa ma investments ambiri in exports. Maka high value crops menenda fotokoza, macadamia, cashew nuts, cassava is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and of course there's also huge opportunity for growth in other commodities in agriculture. There is a ziteka chifukwa cha private sector. Ndufuna ndifotokoze hapa. Si boma, the role of government is not to create jobs. Vuto itili nalo mdziko muno, mentality yatu timayangana kuti boma ndimene imalemba nchito. Jobs come from the private sector. The private sector imene imapanga generate jobs. Dimene koze kulemba antu nchito. In fact, in my photo goes a plan yatu ndikuonesesa kuti we are going to be attractive. Kuti my investments abwere, my business, local businesses are in the buino, economy in the buino, and ayamba kulemba nchito. That is the role of government, managing taxation to be attractive for investments, and making sure kuti there is a conducive environment for private sector. That is the role of government. And I believe kuti isingapeleke number koma ndikuziwa kuti investors are ready kuti ayambe kwina ntchito kuno mdziko muno koma kudandaula exchange rate sili bwino. We have to fix exchange rate. We have to make sure kuti malamulo ena taunikeso, ma policies ena taunike. This drive is what is going to employ young people, and also young people themselves need to be empowered. That's why in Magamba's are innovation, digitization, innovation hubs, ndizina zotera. And zosezi, mene mafotokoza kuti zimu agreement mene nasainelana the United Arab Emirates as a starter for the innovation hubs and the job creation using digital economy.
All right. Thank you very much. I could sit here and ask you a lot of questions, but we're here to also hear from the youth. So we're going to cross over to our audience. Titenga mafuso atatu, and again, titenga so mafuso awili from online. So let's start with the lady in red there, and then we'll cross over to the rest.
Good afternoon, Honorable. My name is Shekinah Katera Banda, and I have 2 questions for you today. And these questions are linked with the youth manifesto that you're going to be signing today. So the first question is, the manifesto advocates of the review of the laws to enhance meaningful youth participation in decision-making structures. Would you support the review of the entry presidential age from 35 to 21 years as it applies to members of parliament? And the second question is linked with the Youth Manifesto Theme 8 that talks about physical violence and sexual abuse of young men and women. What measures will your government implement to hold individuals accountable for committing cyber violence while ensuring that freedom of expression is not undermined? Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's Shiraz, eh?
Shekinah.
Shekinah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Shekinah, for your question. And I think your question is about inclusivity, in making sure that everyone is involved, especially young people, in decision making. And you've outlined that you would like the presidential age to be brought down to 21. We can look at that, and it's a commitment that we can look at. But I thought the more important issue is to fix our economy. If we look at the number one issues affecting young people today, is the economy. The cost of living crisis. No money, no food, no jobs, no opportunities. But we can look at the decision-making issue. But the empowerment of young people, which is the majority in this country, is absolutely key, because they are the drivers of the economy. They represent the future. So the conversations we're having today is about your future and the future of young people. And my role is to help facilitate that. So if the reduction of the presidential age to 21 will help, I have no problem supporting that. So definitely you have my support. And of course, in terms of cyber violence, cyber bullying, I agree that we are in a very difficult time. The economy is not working. There are a lot of high suicide rates among young people. In the last 5 years alone, the poverty rate has moved from 50% 5 years ago to over 80%. So you can imagine the impact this is having on young people. And with these frustrations, then you add cyber bullying, and you have cyber cases. It's a mess. It's a big mess. So part of the digitization strategy is also to help deal with this issue of fake news. And there's a lot of fake news, there's a lot of cyber crime, cyber bullying, and of course enforcement will be at the heart of digitization. So if you want to digitize the economy, you also have to look at all these areas, because it's always part of the process of making sure that there's data protection, protection of privacy, and enforcement is at the heart of it. So I very much I'm supportive of any measure that is going to support young people, because the conversation again today is about the future of young people. Thank you.
Oh, you already have the mic. Go ahead.
Sure. All right. Thank you so much, Honorable Muluzi. My name is Chimamwe Kayange. I had a few questions relating to...
Please bring your mic closer to your mouth.
All right. I had a lot of questions in regards to the economy, but since they've already spoken on, I'm going to focus much on the civic engagement and civic space questions. Firstly, I'm going to direct this question. I want, when you're responding to this question, you should give out the structures or the approaches that you're going to deal with these questions and when you're coming to office. Firstly, your manifesto states that it's going to make sure that public servants or representatives refrain from doing business with the state. I know this is something that we have witnessed happening in the country, and I want to appreciate how you're going to go about this. The second question that also was written in your manifesto was to do with creating a regulatory environment for the media, that it operates freely from political interference. I would like to appreciate the strategies that you're going to put in place in order to create this free or fair media engagement for the civic space people, but also for the media and journalist people that are in the house. The last question is just going to tackle a little bit on the debt management. I know a question was already raised. I want this, when you're answering this question, you should emphasize on the law of how you're going to engage citizens in the public debt, in the debt public management system. For you have said your 100 days will focus on restoring confidence. And as you know, a lot of Malawians, when it comes to the issues of economy, we have lost our confidence and our faith in the systems that are there. So I want to also appreciate the plans that you have in regards to citizen engagement and debt management. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your question. The issue of doing business, public servants, public officials doing business with the state, it's part of the culture of what we call rent-seeking behavior. And this has been around for some time, that business is done with government, and government is the main business. And this has been the culture in Malawi. So we need smaller government. We need bigger private sector. The reason why we're doing public offices are doing business with the state is because there's no other place. The salaries are too small. They're not earning enough. And there's no role and room in the private sector. So the only way to survive is to do business with the state, because the mentality has always been government, government, government. I'm advocating for smaller government, bigger private sector. So no one needs to do business in that fashion. The driver of economic growth is the private sector. It's business. So we need to listen to business. We need to reform the economy so the businesses grow. Your businesses. It's not just, I'm not talking about foreign businesses here. I'm talking about even local businesses. What do we need to do to make sure that you succeed and grow? I think you were going to get rid of this culture. The other is, I think you're asking about the media. This is a very important statement, and perhaps even a question. The challenge we have in Malawi, unfortunately, is that, from my observation, there's also a lot of corruption in the media. Literally, stories are paid for. Individuals who are committing corruption are shielded because the media is not reporting. Because the media is not reporting, we're not getting truth. The reason why we are where we are today is because we're not getting the truth. There's so many things happening in this country that what is happening is that populism has taken over. Mabodza na mina kwenda kwa mbili. So it's difficult for someone to distinguish between what is true and what is fake. So the media has a very powerful role to make sure that they're disseminating truth so that the public can make informed decisions and choices. And I'll give an example in a moment. And one area of truth is what we've started today. What we're doing today is having a real conversation on real issues and leaders to be held account. So all that I'm saying here, I have to be challenged by the media. I should not get away with statements that are false, for example. I should be able to be challenged. So the Access to Information Act that is now law, to what extent is that being implemented? where are the challenges? So the media needs to act decisively. And when the media is acting decisively, you're going to see a lot more strength in terms of the areas that you have talked about, civic education and so forth. And then the issue you've talked about, systems. Yeah, I agree, still systems are broken. Let me give you an example. Today, we are subsidizing the region. Malawians are subsidizing the whole region for fuel. Most of the fuel that comes in Malawi is smuggled to Zambia and different parts of the country. We are paying for it. Malawians are paying for it because we're the cheapest fuel in the whole region. Trucks come in, they refuel here, they go outside, they get paid, sell the fuel in dollars, come back, change the money on the black market, buy fuel at the official exchange rate of 1,700. We're bleeding this country dry. And nobody talks about it. Why? Because of rent-seeking behavior. People don't want the change because there is a particular elite that is benefiting from this crisis. They are becoming billionaires at the expense of the people. So they do not want anything to change. The systems will only change if you have the right leadership that recognizes the problem and is determined to change it. Then we can talk about systems change. But the system now is benefiting a certain elite. This crisis is benefiting a certain elite. They don't want change. So it's this young generation with information that can begin to understand where this crisis is and begin the transformation of this country through truth, not lies. And that is the challenge of our time. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We'll take one from here. So many hands. I think we're going to need more time in this room here today.
Honorable Atupele Muluzi, my name is Charles Sneta from Malaka. I am one of the youngest old men here. You're on camera and on record today. Would you assure us that when you're in government, when you become a president of this country next 16th September, tikazabwera kusakuuzani kuti munatiyankha izi, you will not push us out of your office? Would you assure us that? You spoke about visa abolishment. Kuti ma visa muzachosa onse. Already we have seen that we have people outside this country who are living with us. We are a host, Malawi, we are hosting them. But some businesses have been taken away from most of the local Malawians. They are competing. Unfortunately, tilibe ndalama Malawi so that we can compete with us. Are you going to make sure kuti ya Malawi as a tabeku upanga compete ndi anthu aja? How are you going to do that? Komanso on visa abolishment. How are you going to make sure that you're not going to let in terrorists and despoil our peaceful country here in Malawi? How are you going to do that? The last one is, we are talking about 100 days. The 100 days is so famous. From Malawi to USA, presidents say the same. How smart are you? Smart in terms of achieving the strategies that you are going to put with your government? Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for your question. On the munanena kuti kwambirira kuti mungatenga boma pa 16 September. Ningofuna ndilankhuleko just a brief statement. Chisankho sichinachitike. Ena kuzimenya pa mtima kuti awina kale chisankho. sizinachitike. Mpata osankha tsogolo la Malawi uchitike pa 16 September. Ndizoteka kuti amalawi abwerese utsogoleri watsopano pa 16 September. Ndiye chifukwa yake tikulankhulana pano. Chifukwa it can happen. And ndikukhulupirira kuti amalawi akufuna kuti zinthu zisinthe. That's why I'm very grateful that you're holding me to account for the issues that I've spoken about today. Issues zokhudza visa. You know, no, business, start with businesses. They have taken businesses away from Malawians. Sir, I hear you, but that's a very populist statement to make, where you like to blame foreigners. Let's blame the other guy. Mavuto kuti chuma chisi chikuenda bwino kapena ma business akuenda bwino. Vuto si anthu obwera uzapanga business mdziko muno. Vuto ndi ifeyo as leaders being unable to create that environment for people, young people, to generate businesses, to have income, to have the fair chance to compete and do business. That's where the challenge is. Don't blame the foreigner. The foreigner is coming here because he's seen an opportunity that our people are failing to seize. We need to empower our people to do business. In this era of investment and trade, you need to compete in the region. Malawians need to have the tools now to understand business, to be able to be competitive with our neighbors in Tanzania, Mozambique, Zambia. We need to empower our people, and that is the key now. We need to give them these skills, the training to compete. Because that's how we're going to grow the economy. That's how they're going to bring money here. That's how we're going to build and create domestic wealth generation. Change the thinking. Don't always blame the other person. We have this blame. We like to blame everything. Mavuto onsewa, we want to blame external forces. The reason we're in a crisis is a failure to respond, failure to act. Whether it's food crisis, economic crisis, it is a failure to act. We're the 4th poorest country in the world. Number 4. Think about that for a second, sir. We are the 4th poorest country in the world today. Which terrorist wants to come to the 4th poorest in the country in the world and bomb? We have to grow this economy. We have to be attractive. Let them bring their money here and spend their money. We want dollars. Let them bring the dollars here. We must be as attractive as possible to bring US dollars. UAE, the rich country like Dubai, only 13% of Dubai's economy is owned by local people. Only 13%. The majority of that money in Dubai is foreign capital. Look where Dubai is today. It opens its doors to the world. Let them bring their money. We want to bring them dollars. Let them bring their dollars. Malawi should be attractive. Law enforcement, security issues, we'll deal with that. But let people bring their money here. And we must be the most attractive destination for tourism, agriculture, mining, energy. We must be the best in the world. And that is the new Malawi we want from the 16th of September. The other issue, I think, was to do with, the 100 days. So the 100 days plan sets the tone for your administration. If you miss your 100 days, unfortunately, it sets the tone of your government. So 100 days is extremely important because this is where the reforms take place. This is where the signaling takes place. Is it going to be business as usual, or is there going to be a change? Are we seeing a president moving again with massive convoy? Going to have a lean convoy. Signaling is very important. Very austere cabinet, focused and driven plan, strategies. Antwena amangidwe, akaloe, signaling. The minute a few people are arrested, it will send a signal. Don't steal. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you very much for the questions from our audience. I'm going to move to two Facebook questions. Fusolo yamba lujogela kwa Tiwonge Promise Msukwa, and she says, Honorable, as you take leadership of the country at this critical moment, what steps would you take to strengthen institutions and ensure they serve the public's interest? That is a question from Tiwonge.
Zikumkwambili Tiwonge chifukwa cha fusolanu systems ndizofunikira kwambiri chifukwa amene ndafotokoza kuti ntchito ya boma ndikuonesesa kuti ikupereka enabling environment kapena njira kuti ma business aende bwino ndi amadalira ma systems mwazina. For example, ndingopereka chitsanzo, mukawerenga business first taika 30-day rule for licensing, use it or lose it. My investors akabwera mdziko muno, for example, they want to bring ndalama zawo mdziko muno, timatenga nthawi kuti tipange ma decisions. By the time tipange ma decisions, aganiza kuti apite ku Tanzania kapena Zambia. So within 30 days, ngati sidivomera, what we are saying, it will be an automatic approval. I hope you understand what I'm saying. So it will be the type of systems that TEK in place to start to send the signaling, because it's not business as usual, that this is a government that is very much focused on making sure we're creating that enabling environment for Malawi, so kutazilandira zimene ayenera kulandira ngati ma passport, ma driver's licenses, zithandizo mboma zino zote, but signaling imayambika from the very top, from the first 100 days.
Okay, the next question is from Helmes Piri, and ndukubila kuti akuonera kuchokera ku South Africa. Ndipo funso lawo likuti mumaganizira bwanji achinyamata amene wakunja chifukwa choti economy yathu sili bwino, pamene zipatala zakuno ku South Africa sizikupereka thandizo kwa anthu obwera pamene tili ndi ambassador konkuno. Amene ndi Helmes Piri.
Zodandaulisa kwambiri kuti achinyamata akusowa opportunity mpata mdziko lao. Young people are not being able to get an opportunity in their own country. Kudabire maiko ena kutakapeze ma opportunities ngati amenewo. Ife setsa amene ndafotokoza kuti through my strategies athu tikufuna kuti achinyamata azikhala momuno chifukwa ma opportunities ali momuno. That is how we believe we can transform this problem. Therefore, because my strategies are growth through the establishment of Sovereign Wealth Fund. Imene ipange invest in my sectors, including health, zaumoyo, ndi my sectors ena mina kufotokoza. But the key is we have to fix this economy. Kudachi nyamata asamajoke kuno kumapita sukunja.
All right, thank you very much, and a huge thank you to everyone online as well as our youth here in our audience for your questions. We have sat here for over an hour, but we're going to take a 5-minute break just for us to go straight. For those of you that need to use the bathrooms, this is the time you do so. After 5 minutes, we'll be back and we'll continue this presidential youth dialogue with the president of UDF and presidential candidate in the 2025 elections, Honorable Atupele Muluzi. Thank you, and we'll be back shortly.
imene crossroads and one youth akonza a youth and society ya kuno magawa nkhani zokudza ntchito za migodi za umoyo komanso amene amwene adzachitire makamaka pa ndondomeko zimene zili zopindulira iwo achinyamata amenenso kwaukulu ndiwo amene awakonzera ndithu zokambirana zimenezi nde pakatha amene wawa Atupele Muluzi pakhalenso ena atsogoleri osiyanasiyana azipani zina amene akupikisana pa chisankho cha pa 16 September amenenso akuluakulu ayas akhale ndithu akukumana nawo pamodzi ndi achinyamata osiyanasiyana nde pano ndili ndi mmodzi mwa iwo amenenso abwera kuno ku Crossroads Hotel kumene kukuchitikira ndithu zokambirana Jakri Jijide ndichoncho
ndi momwemo
chabwino mwina pazomwe afotokoza Muluzi kumbali yanu mungafotokoza kuti ndi ziti zimene mwatolapo komanso ndi ziti zimene mukuona kuti akufunika kuti atsindikepo kwambiri.
Chabwino anafotokozapo zinthu zingapo koma chinthu chachikulu chimene ndinachitola ine ndichokhudzana ndi mmene atathandizire kuti nkhani ya forex ndalama zija zakunja zikhale zikubwerera muno Malawi komanso kuti atipatse ife achinyamata umwayi okhala nawo ndithu mpata omachita ma business komanso skulu nde mfundo zimene zinandilimbikitsa kwambiri pozindikira kuti panopa nkhani ya forex nde yafika paja povuta kuti ukayenda kunja zikumakhala zovuta kuti wewe utenge ndalama komanso mabanki mulibe komanso ngakhale kumalonda kumene kuti tigule mwina katundu wina umene sitimapanga kuno kwathu ku Malawi zimativuta kwambiri nde mfundo izizi ndi zimene iwo anafotokozera ndithu ife achinyamata kunena kuti akalowa mu boma akhale ndithu ni masiku amene 100 amene akhale akuyesesa kunena kuti ndalama zakunja zikhale zikubwerera kunena kuti no tikatero tikhoza kuona kunena kuti zinthuzo ziyende bwanji
gozapo anatsindika posofunga kwambiri kwa udindo wa achinyamata iwo eni pa chitukuko cha dziko lino mukuona kuti kupita chitsogolo mutani pamene kamba kuti chisankho chilipo pa 16 September.
Chabwino ineyo kwambiri ngati wachinyamata komanso kudzera amenewo anasindikiza nkhani yona kuti ife achinyamata tili ndi udindo waukulu otukula dziko lino ndimaona ngati kuti tisakhale kwambiri ndi maganizo kapena kuti malingaliro omanena kunena kuti dzikoli atadzukule mwina ndi anthu ena ifeyo tikhale ngati ma agents of change pa chizungu amatero anthu amene akufuna kubweretsa kusintha nde tikayamba ife achinyamata tikhoza kuyamba ma business ang'ono ndipo menemo tikakhala kuna kuti takhazikika tikhozanso malemba ntchito anzathu ena kuti nawonso akhale ngati kuti sali anthu amene akungokhala osamagwira ntchito kumapetako mapezo kuti mwina upanga zinthu zosakhala bwino mwina za kuba izi zomakhalanso mwina kuti mwina akuchita mchitidwe osakhala bwino ndi ngotero mwachidule so ndikuona ngati kuti ndi nthawi imene tikuyenera kuti ifeyo tikhazikike tidziwe chimene tikufuna tivote moyenera komanso tikhale ndithu ni mphamvu yochilimika tokha ngati achinyamata kuti kusintha umene tikufunako kuyambire ndi ifeyo kenako kuzipita ku dziko lathu lino la Malawi.
Pamene mwina tukamba kuti zokambirana zimenezi zikupitirirabe kwa inuyo mukuona kuti achinyamata eni ake mundikapo gawo lotani pa mfundo zimene apereka komanso kufunikira kwa inuyo makamaka pa ndondomeko ya chisankho.
Ine ngati wachinyamata mmodzi amene ndikusata kwambiri zokhudzana ndi masankho a chaka chino ndimaona ngati udindo wathu oyambirira ndona kuti tikavote chifukwa tikhoza kukhala nako mtima kunena kuti kunyanyala kapena kuti kuzisiya koma ndimaona ngati ndi nthawi yabwino yenera kuti titakhala pasi ndi kupanga kauniuni kuti kodi ndi ndani amene akuoneka kuti mfundo zake zikhoza kumasula Malawi komanso kuti patsa mwina chiyembekezo chabwino chimene ifeyo tikuchiyembekezera ndiye kuti munthu amene ndi amene aloyenera kuti ifeyo timpase chani udindo komanso mene ndinafotokozera poyamba paja ndikuona kunena kuti ifenso tili ndi udindo mwachisanzo mene ndimakamba za nkhani ya ma business ndikutheka kuti tili ma business amene tikhoza kuwalemba anzathu ntchito ni nthawi ino kuti taitana anthu amene aja tapase ntchito komanso nthawi zina pali nkhani yokhudzana ndi internet technology chimene chimandikhudza kwambiri kuti ine ndi mmodzi wachinyamata amene ndinaphunzira za internet nditapita ku university koma nono panopa ndimatha kudziwa bwinobwino za internet pali achinyamata ambiri amene mwina gawo limene chopangira umenewo alibe tikhozanso kumabwera ndi ma small initiative kwa kuwaphunzitsa achinyamata anzathuwa kupanga kuti kodi pa internet akhoza kukhalapo bwanji komanso pamene pangapindule napo bwanji pali nkhani joma panga ma online businesses. Iyi ndi nthambi imene ifeyo patokha tikhoza kuzipatulira nthawi ndikulolanso kuwaphunzitsa achinyamata anzathu kuti akhoza kumapanga ma business amenewo mwa online. Ndio tikatero taphaso mbali ina imene timanoti ayiboma mukwena mutiphunzitse ife tokha tikhozanso kuphunzitsa anzathu tikatero ndi kuti dziko lathu la Malawi likhoza kutukuka.
Tathokoza kwambiri chifukwa cha nthawi yanu.
Zikomo kwambiri.
Ndithu amene ndi Jacqueline Jijide kufotokozapo zina mwa zomwe amvapo kuno ku Crossroads Hotel mu mzinda wa Lilongwe komwe kuchitika zimene zokambirana zimene akonza Youth and Society komanso Zodiac Broadcasting Station. Presidential Youth Dialog chingerezi chake akutero makamaka iso ndi nthawi imene akufuna kuti apereke mwayi kwa achinyamata osiyanasiyana kuti afunse komanso apereke ndemanga zawo pa mfundo zimene adindo pandale akonzera pendo kamba kuti chisankho chili pa 16 September mene naonera mene ndandanda wake ulili iwo watu akuyenanso kuti akumane ndi akuluakulu a chipani cha UTM kudzera mwa mtsogoleri wawo amene ndi Adalitso Kabambe komanso akhala ndithu achinyamata amene akucheza ndi Joyce Banda a chipani cha Peoples komanso akhala kucheza ndi Lazarus Chakwera a chipani cha MCP Peter Mutharika a chipani cha DPP ndiye naso mwayiwo amene ndithu akhala ndithu akucheza nawo achinyamata amenewa pamene tukamba kuti chisankho chili pa 16 September kusankha atsogoleri a dziko aphungu a nyumba ya malamulo komanso makansala. Nde achinyamata amene abwera kuno ku Crossroads amene adzadzana mchipinda chimene chotchedwa auditorium akufotokozapo kuti kwa iwo akuyembekeza kuti adindo amenewa akwaniritsadi zofuna zawo pamene ambiri akhala kudandaula kuti iwowa amagwiritsidwa ntchito kwambiri ndi atsogoleri a ndale pochita ziwawa. Nde pano akuyang'anapo pa mfundo imene ithandizire kuti dziko lipite patsogolo lithandizike kudzeranso mukumana kumeneku ndi akuluakulu amenewa a zipani. Tibwererenso mchipinda momwe mukuchitikira ngini imeneyi yopindulira kwambiri magaye ngati inuyo amene mukutsatira Zodiac kuti ayi kuti zonse zikhale kuti zili nyatwa mukenera kuti mumve kuti kodi atsogoleri amenewa kodi akuyendera yotani vibe yawo ndi chani kuti dziko linonso lipite patsogolo. Nde magaye mukhale pamene popo chifukwa kuti kunoko ndi kukuyaka moto kwambiri fatu pele a UDF ande abwera ndi ngini yovuta kwambiri je tsatire bwino lomwe mpaka na kumapeto.
Just interacting with the youth on the upcoming elections as to say ngati akulowa mboma ngati akhale president wathu kuyambira September mene ndi chani chomwe chisinthe makamaka ku dziko lathu la Malawi pamene tikupanga face ma issues ambirimbiri okhudzana makamaka achinyamata. All right, we're going to get back into it. Honorable Atupele, I've been given permission to address him as Honorable Atupele, so please no backfire. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Cynthia.
All right. Honorable Atupele, UDF's manifesto, the new manifesto, Innovate Malawi. Mwatikonzekera chani achinyamata mu manifesto imeneyi?
Manifesto ya UDF ndi Innovate Malawi. Mu Innovate Malawi muli ma program osiyana opangitsa kuti chuma chathu chipite patsogolo. Koma kuti zitheke zimenezo ni maplan amene tayika mu manifesto yathu. Tiyena kukhonza kaye chuma cha dziko lino chifukwa kuti tikwaniritse zinthu pafunika ndalama kulibe chuma chasokonekera. Nde tipanga bwanji kuti tikhonze chuma chathu kuti tikhale ndi ndalama kuti tikwaniritse zimene zili mu manifesto yathu kapena maloto athu ngati mtundu wa Malawi. Chifukwa lero mukayang'ana chuma cha Malawi chasokonekera, pa Chingerezi tingonena kuti tili mu economic crisis. Mwina pano sitikuimva crisis imeneyo. Ndikudziwa kuti kunjako kulibe ndalama, anthu osambiri akudandaula kuti akulephera kugula chakudya chifukwa ndalama zikuvuta komanso katundu angokwera mtengo tsiku ndi tsiku. Kulibe ndalama chakudya chikuvuta. Kulibe ndalama akulephera kulipira maphunziro achinyamata. Chuma sichikuyenda bwino, makampani ambiri sizikuyenda. Nde tipanga bwanji kuti tikhonze chuma chathuchi kuti tikhale ndi ndalama kuti tikwaniritse zimene tikufuna kuchita. Chimene chapangitsa kuti katundu azingokwera mtengo tsiku ndi tsiku. Ife ngati dziko katundu ambiri chifukwa chuma cha dziko la Malawi chimayendera mafuta diesel ndamene amatenga katundu mdziko muno, diesel ndamene timagwirisira